Hello, everyone. We are excited to be back. We hope you enjoyed that commercial from Advent Health. I am here. Can I call you Dr. Latoya? Is that okay?
That's okay, but I prefer Latoya.
Okay. We are here with Latoya, and she has an amazing story that we're going to talk about. So I know that 2 years ago, and it's crazy to think how much this has evolved.
That's right.
But 2 years ago, you came to me, I think it was at camp meeting, at Lake Region's camp meeting, or at another event.
That's right.
And you said to me, hey, I want to be able to start a Pathfinder museum.
That's right.
What has happened in those 2 years to evolve to where the museum is now?
So since then, I met with Dixie Plata from the NAD Pathfinder Museum. She came to our Lake Union Camporee 2 years ago. And I walked through the museum and I spent about 2 or 3 days in her museum, and I absolutely fell in love, and I thought we need to have our own here in Lake Region Conference. And since then we have met with her and with Brother Jay, Brother Robert Johnson, and since then we have collected items for our museum, and now we have our very own Lake Region Conference Museum, and we're just so excited to have it to share with the youth. They walked through the museum at our camp meeting last year, and they absolutely fell in love with it. And we were back again this year, about a month and a half ago, when we had our LRC camp meeting, and we were able to share the history of her Pathfinder in itself. Also, Charlotte Church was our first Pathfinder club in the conference. Also, the history of Lake Region Conference itself is a regional conference, so we were to share that with them.
Awesome.
And they even wanted to ask about honors, and so we shared that with them. It was just a really great experience over the last 2 years. So,
wow,
yeah.
So much of it has grown. Now, you had a burning desire to get this done, and when it comes to preserving history, it's very important. Sometimes we just look at certain things that we gather as just artifacts to throw into a box.
That's right.
But what was it about Pathfinder history that you wanted to preserve?
So for me, I was never a Pathfinder. My husband was, and so we have 2 daughters who were also Pathfinders. And so for them, I wanted, because you have to know your history. If you don't know your history, you don't know where you're going. So for me, I wanted them to know about their history. And I find Pathfinding involves PBE, which is learning about a book every year. And if the kids don't study their Bibles, how are they going to spread the words to others? And so this involved both PBE, also lifestyle skills. Like right now, we're in a campsite. It's all about living in the woods and learning how to survive. So to me, that's all part of Pathfindering. So this helped us to teach the kids more about being a Pathfinder and how to survive and how to share, the history and share friendships and meet others from other countries as well. And so it's just been, to see their faces as well, it's just been such a blessing to watch them and see the excitement that they show when they, come to the museum.
And that's incredible. You mentioned how this history, when they see those patches, they see pictures of uniforms, they see pictures of previous clubs and directors, you said it brings people together and it connects them. How do you feel that the process of getting the information and talking with others, how did that connect some history for you in terms of Pathfinders?
So it first started with doing some research initially. So we had to find books on the history of Pathfindering itself. Back in 1918, we found some old books, which we have in the museum as well, in 1920s. And so as I read and read more and more, I thought the kids need to learn about this. And so I went across Lake Region Conference to meet other, older folks who've been in the conference for a very long time. I was able to meet David Graham from Charlotte Church, whose grandmother was actually a part of starting our conference, back in the 1940s. And so as I got to meet everyone, I was able to gather more and more. And it's important that we put it in writing. The problem is a lot of us have lived it, but we don't know the dates and the years. And so it's good to write our history down so we could pass it on to the next generation.
Right. And that just comes straight from the Bible. We're writing the vision, making it plain, but we're also making sure that others are aware of what happened in the past.
That's right.
Now, what have been some of the interesting reactions that you've seen when people go through the museum?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the kids. I mean, the adults love it. They will come with a walk through and they will start singing, "Oh old MV songs.
Really?
And that's nice for me to see because I didn't live that. So I'm almost living it through them now. But the kids, when they see different pins and the dangles and the colors and the sparkles, and so I love to see that. They also ask about the uniforms because now we wear the khaki shirt and the black skirt, and so back then sometimes they wore a green tunic, a full uniform, and then it went to a green skirt, and then it's now a black skirt. So the kids will ask about that, and they'll say, "Oh, my dad was born in 19 so and so. Oh, so he must have worn that uniform." So it's nice to see see that.
I'm sure it is. I know I've been a Pathfinder, went all the way up to Master Guide, and I remember when they made the change from going to the green to the black, and I felt like, oh my gosh, they can't take away, because it just felt so natural. It felt like it was just a part of what Pathfinders is all about.
That's right.
And you mentioned pins, and I see you have a plethora of pins going on. Pin trading is huge here. Now, are there any opportunities for people while at Camporee to visit the museum or contribute to the artifacts in the museum?
Absolutely. So on site right now, we have the NAD Pathfinder Museum. So this is run by Dixie Plata and her group. In that museum, you will find 2 cases from the Lake Region Conference. We have one on the history of our conference, and we also have one on the history of our very first club, which is the Charlotte Church. So if you want to donate any items to the club, to LRC's museum, you could do that through Dixie Platter in the NAD museum there, or I am located in the Lake Region Conference campsite, and you can bring items there. We'll take anything. We'll take old magazines, we'll take pins, even as far back as 1985, the first Camporee. We'll take booklets, we'll take scarves, any artifact that people have that will represent the history of pathfinding, we'll take them.
Because everything that we see is important. It's a memory.
Exactly.
And you never know who will pass by, who will make their way through that museum and say, oh, I know that person.
Right.
Oh, that's what I wore. Oh, or this slide is the one I had, or I had a metal slide, I had a cloth slide.
That's right.
This is the belt I wore. There are so many memories and that take place when people go through the museum. So I hope that people take advantage of this opportunity and donate and submit artifacts. Now, I do have to ask this question. Now, when they submit it, is it just for a time or just for that run of, let's say, the Pathfinder Museum tour for that event?
No, not at all. So we keep items from all years.
Okay.
So once it's given to us, I keep a list of their names and what was given, so I know that it was donated. Then what we do is when they walk through and they see that they donated, I always say, hey, look, you gave me this, it's right there. Because it's not my museum, it's the conference museum. So I want everyone to see that we're building it as a collective group, not just me,
Awesome. And I know this was something special, and I'm so glad that God gave you the desire, the burning desire, because we've had multiple conversations, emails back and forth. Okay, how do we get the word out about this information? So it's not over. The museum is not finished. This is a living history of Pathfinders, and we're so glad that Dr. Latoya was here and able to share with us about the museum. Now, was there anything, lasting words about the museum that you would like to share in terms of just making sure that people know that history is important and pathfinding is something that we should all cherish?
Well, I would love to do some interviews on some old master guides. We would like to preserve the history of our conference. So I'm not from this conference originally, so when I came in, I'm learning more and more every day. So I would love to just interview some older folks who may be able to give us more dates and more meeting events that happened, back in the 60s or 70s, so we can preserve that history.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you'll be available at the museum as well?
Not today, but we will be there today to kind of walk through to learn more about other clubs and other conferences and their history. But I'll be there today with Dixie Platter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And if you have any information or any artifacts that you would like to submit to the Pathfinder Museum, please just simply message or go to the Lake Union Herald Instagram. You can message them, DM them, and just mark in that message about the Pathfinder Museum and you would like more information about it.
And before we go, I want to show off, this is the Pontiac Warrior Club which I'm from. Here's their uniform. And this is a club that we made, a payment that we made for the first time this year. So
awesome.
This will be history because this will be your first club pin.
Nice, and I'm sure that's going to go in the museum as well. Thank you so much for joining us for this segment, but we're not over. The broadcast continues after this commercial.